Welcome, everybody, to the Unaccountable podcast. I'm here with Alan. So, go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm 28 years old. I went to college for equine studies with advanced training emphasis. And so that was really my main passion. And at some point in college, and I guess, previous to college, I had always had a passion for innovating. So I'd always come up with, little gadgets or, different things that I could see gaps in different industries. And I'm like, hey, this could fix that. Or for example, business idea gaps. So I would see, Fortune 500 companies, and I'm like, man, if they just fired these people that are, salary and they just subcontracted, they could, increase their revenue by however much. And that's just how my brain has always worked, even from like a very young, like maybe 7 years old. And so I would just go around seeing these things. And so at some point during college, riding these horses and competing, like I said, I was a previous national college champion. And so I was like, maybe I should leave college early and get rich. And then I could just buy whatever horses I want and I'd be able to easily compete with, some of the world class people. And so that's exactly what I did. I was able to go through the college program, and I actually went to University of Findlay, which has the nation's number one equestrian program. So I was thrown in there with the best of the best, youth riders coming out, being 18 and going through college. And once I surpassed all of my classmates, I was like, there's no reason for me to be here. And so I was like, I might as well get a head start, go get a high paying job, and save up for my first utility patent. To fast forward to today, and I graduated college in 2020. So to fast forward to today, I have a utility patent. I monetized it. I was able to monetize it pre-sales. So that's something, a lot of people don't get to experience because a lot of people are like, well, you're not going to be able to make any money. You have no sales. But again, like that's what I specialize in, is seeing different ideas. And I say, hey, we can put this in a non-disclosure agreement. We can type up a document, explaining what kind of revenue increase this company can expect to make from this change and see if we can sell this and market it to them. So again, with my brain working like that, I was able to, get a utility patent, ironically enough, on a product that's in the horse industry. And then, market it, get investors, the whole Shark Tank kind of deal. So that's really where I work in that space. And again, the LLC that I own is Just Doing God's Work LLC. And so we literally just try to build resources and then give back to the community in, a multitude of ways. And, like I said, whatever we're able to do. So that's pretty much a rundown of, who I am and for the most part, my general skill set.
Okay. No, so it sounds like you're living the American dream, quite frankly. You're a successful entrepreneur, is what I'm gathered from this, which is, it sounds awesome, quite frankly. I'm from Texas, and so we have a pretty strong equestrian team where I'm at, over at A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well they do. I've never been interested in equestrian. I won't lie to you there. I have absolutely no idea how it works, how all of that plays out. But for the most part, I'm actually shocked. I actually thought we were really high in the ranks. So, but you said you're number one. I was like, oh crap. Okay, I don't know where we are.
I did compete against, some of if did you go there to Texas A&M?
I did not know. I worked there for a time.
I definitely competed against them at nationals the 2 years that I decided to compete. And then, like I said, as I was an upperclassman, I was like, I was just doing other things. And like I said, I started developing my first utility patent when I was a junior. And like, kind of changed my focus to more business. And I'm like, everyone's still focused on college, and I'm ready, for the next step as far as I don't want to graduate college and then just be like, okay, what do I do now? You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely. I definitely saw your guys, logo and stuff. Definitely have a good team there.
Okay, yeah. I don't know much about the equestrian stuff. I will say, so you said you did a utility patent. I know that you said there's an NDA with it. Don't know. I don't know how much you could disclose, but out of curiosity, could you kind of like poke in an area, like somewhere where we can visualize?
I can divulge it because it's already patented and
Okay.
it's non-provisional patent. So people, I guess, who don't know the difference between a provisional and non-provisional, it
Mhm.
a provisional patent would be better, but that means that it's a patent that is open to being changed.
Okay.
So time you have to all patents are end up being non-provisional because a non-provisional patent is the final version of the design of the patent and everything that that it includes. And so the fact that I was able to design the product, have prototypes built, I had everything from CAD prototypes that were on the computer, just visual, to actual physical prototypes that I built handmade, and then actually going to manufacturers and getting real deal prototypes that I was able to shoot basically a product reveal commercial, and start marketing it to companies. So currently, it is under at Tractor Supply. I don't know if Tractor Supply is down there. Do you
Oh,
guys?
yeah, no, everybody's a big fan of Traction Supply.
So yeah, it's currently under review at Tractor Supply, and I'm looking for a buyout, or slash licensing, whatever. Again, this is like my first big, you know, personally my first big uh project, I'll say, having a utility patent. So, again, we've monetized as far as getting investors and hitting the cap. I did a $20,000 month. I think it had been 2 years ago now. So it was literally maybe 8 months after the patent was passed in 2023. And so, we showed it to a few people and they're like, where do I send the money? They thought it was a great idea. And so that was perfect because it gave me everything I needed to continue to push the project because I think a lot of people underestimate the length that it takes to bring something like that to market. So just doing research on average, a patent normally isn't monetized until 5 years after the has been issued. And so, us being able to do it in the first 8 months after it was issued was huge because there's still another 5 years at least that you can expect before you get some big buyout. So, I always tell people, for example, the Ring doorbell, um, they had some sales, but it was really the buyout was for $1 billion. They wrote a check to the guy for $1 billion to buy his utility patent. And, but really it's just the design and everything because once these big companies buy a patent, obviously they're gonna rebrand, they're gonna redesign and have their engineers, again, redesign everything. And so that's just basically where we're at with it. It's been under review for like 2 weeks, but again, when you're talking, big numbers, it's not something that they're just going to pull the trigger like, oh yeah, we're just going to write you a check tomorrow. So it was definitely very beneficial to be able to get some investors early stage so that because actually even with part of the investment funds, I was able to invest in some smaller reoccurring uh, revenue. So basically, for example, one of the things I was able to invest in was a horse trailer that I rent out. So I rent out a horse trailer, and I rent it out at 100 a day. And so just finding things to keep bringing in revenue for the business, so that when it is time to say, like for example, when we shot our product commercial, it was like $3,500 for. I think they were out there for maybe 6 hours. There was two guys, and they had a drone, and they had the whole setup. And so bringing in some revenue so that we can pay for those things as it goes along. Because again, if you're thinking 3, 4, 5 year process, there's just going to be small things that keep coming up, and it's like, okay, this is 1,000 or this is $500, and so that's pretty much where I'm at with. And then again, just helping other people, get the rights to their intellectual property and things of that nature is really my forte and is my passion. And so again, Lord willing, this goes the way that it's supposed to go with Tractor Supply, so I don't have to chase down a bunch of other companies and pitch it to a bunch of people. But that'll give me resources that I can then help people get patents and partner on different ideas and things of that nature.
Yeah. No, it's a good route to go. It's a tough one though. I mean, I think nowadays everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and it's a respectable profession, quite frankly. It's just it gets really hard. Like you said, there's more to it than just, oh, I made something, now I gotta sell it. No, it's like building a company and you have to build a brand and you have to build I mean, you have to make sure the quality, everything has to be to the other person's liking, even when you have to sell it. And then when you do make a patent and then you announce or I guess, again, I'm not familiar with the patent process entirely.
Yeah, yeah.
I know some people will go out and they'll try to buy cheap patents, and then they won't even really have a utility for it. They just put it on a shelf until somebody else is really interested in it, and they could sell it later, like an investment. And that's
Correct.
kind of a terrible way to do it, but I mean, I understand it. I just don't like that because that's somebody's, like that's like their kid, that's their baby. They grew it, they raised it, they built it,
Exactly.
and they sold it to somebody because they weren't getting anything out of it. So, I mean, I can understand that too because early, I guess not really early, but towards my last semester of college, for my bachelor degree, I was involved with, a sort of process. It was, similar to what you're describing, except I had no involvement in the patent process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mine was just trying to market a product, and we were trying to find a way for the product to, 1, be marketable, and at the same time, we were also trying to find a way for it to be applicable at all because, it dealt with, like, the Keurig cups, right? Like the little cups they used to have, and you could yeah. So this thing allowed you to turn a regular coffee maker that people have in the office into, like, a Keurig.
Oh,
And
what?
yeah, it was pretty cool. It's not as fancy as it sounds, quite frankly. It was just this big old plastic tub that allows you to pour hot water into it, and it was called a make one cup. Well, eventually, when the patent was released, China had 18 different versions of it in about 5 minutes. So, kinda blew it out of market, and then not only that, we started thinking, "Well, if we can't do anything with the patent,
Right.
maybe we could sell it similar to you," and one of our biggest problems was the application. It's not necessary for a regular one to have that because if they did that, then they couldn't sell the Keurig, you know? Why sell a Keurig if you could sell both products, a crappy coffee maker and a Keurig? So, it didn't really help. I mean, and the only logical option was to kinda wholesale it and do all the sales yourself entirely, which would take years, and you'd buy inventory and it'd stack up. And
Correct.
it got to a point where it wasn't worth the time, and that's really what we had to do is decide whether or not it was actually worth our time to do, and it wasn't. But we still have the or I don't have the patent, and the guy I was working with didn't have it. I know the guy who has a patent. Let's just put it that way. He's a friend a little bit. We're kinda weird, but, he's definitely still holding on to it, but I don't think he really, cares what happens to it anymore because there's just no way to market it without having, 1, a competitor coming in, swooping your sales, or 2, having to go to the person that makes a coffee maker and it just not being applicable.
It's interesting because I think that's the struggle that a lot of innovators they hit is because it's like that is a good idea. But like I was just even on Reddit and a lot of people it was a different conversation that was going on and it's like to actually hit that moment of realization that it is a really good idea, but that doesn't always equate to sales or marketability. And that like really sucks because it's like some ideas are really, really good. And but like you're saying, it's like, but why would technically someone buy this? You know what I mean? Like you only realize that after you've, created and there's some other things that like I try to anything that I try to create, I don't know if this is a real term, but I try to do like blue ocean markets where it's like um very few competitors. Like my utility patent is a horse toy. So in our industry, the last legitimate horse toy was created like over 35 years ago. And so there's real like horses literally just stand there all day and like do nothing. And so, the only toys that they have access to is, they're very like unhygienic. They lay on the ground, they have poop all over them and stuff like this. I was able to create something that attaches to the outside of the stall and then it stimulates the horse. It's almost like an optical illusion, but it's designed to be replaced. So I try to come up with things that can sell in multiple ways. So you're not just buying the initial unit, you're buying the replacement parts that the horse, will chew down and basically consume. And then you have to go back to Tractor Supply and buy a 3-pack of the replacements for the base that you bought. And so it's like two streams of revenue that are there. And so I try to come up with different things. Like another thing, we came up with a seat belt. So a seat belt that decreases decapitations and severe whiplash effects. So things like that, where it's like no one has done anything with the seatbelt. I mean, it's a 3-point seatbelt. You know what I mean? Like things that are easily marketable and have like a real effect. But I definitely have had a lot of ideas that I didn't end up, pushing further because like that same situation where it's like, this is genius, but no one's probably really going to buy it. Or like you're saying, if it's something that China has already sunk its teeth into, then it's like that kind of makes it impossible because they have a different version of it, or maybe it's like slightly altered, but it kind of is going towards the same thing. So it's like you have all these different competitors. So that's definitely, I think, one of the hardest things is, you know, being able to, I guess, to deal with that. Cause I've heard of a lot of stories where people will push products for like years and years, and then some of them, um, like, some of them end up getting bought, like, to your previous point, how, there's companies that will just buy patents. I met a guy, he was on, some launch teams for some different products that were on Shark Tank, and, one of the products, it was like a wall accessory, like, outlet accessory that you could, like, stick your phone on top of and it would charge. It was, like, really dumb, like, why would I put my phone on the wall to charge instead of use a cord? You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that, but again, a cool patent, but it's not really, um, like, realistic. But, a local company actually in Toledo, Ohio here, Owens Corning, bought his patent for $40 million. So it was a huge hit for him, a huge hit for him. But literally 3 years later, the product completely tanked. They completely dropped it. They lost all interest. And then apparently, because they abandoned the patent, he like rebranded it and revamped it, like, years after. And I'm sure he probably, tried to monetize from some other large company, tech company. But so there is a little bit of that out there, and I feel like that makes it difficult because it almost makes innovators feel like any idea that they have that's a good idea, it's worth their time. And like you're saying, I think a strong characteristic of a good innovator is like how you guys did. Once you get so far and you start seeing like, okay, is this worth our time? You guys could put a lot more energy towards another innovation and maybe something that it actually hits. And so because I've seen people come up with innovations and then they're like, oh well, it's not going to work, or I have no way to. And it's like, dude, this is actually good. Like if you push this, you might, you know what I mean, like you could hit. And so it's definitely something that it takes a lot of like stay power and like a lot of emotional stability because you come with good ideas and some of them hits, some of them don't. And especially if you're talking about trying to get like $1 million deals and, buyouts and patents and stuff like this. I just posted the other day, you don't hit those kind of shots every day. Those are shots that, are like every blue moon, if ever, you might hit, a super huge contract like that. So it's definitely can be like discouraging, but that's really the name of the game, as far as when you're inventing stuff is like, I'm just gonna keep trying until, something does hit. It's
No. And you're not wrong about that. And I'm pretty sure there's a thing with crossover that I think a lot of people may have. Like you said, they were buying out a patent for a charger on the wall. I have no freaking idea what the hell that would do.
right,
I not nothing. Literally no idea why you would want that.
right,
And I would have to see the product and probably think it would even be dumber just based on the way it looks. But I won't knock a product on it because I know that sometimes there's a crossover problem. Somebody has a better product, but they need your patent because if
correct,
they cross over, it becomes an issue legally. And
correct,
so that is a big thing to watch out with that stuff too. And then China's got, like I said, 18 different reasons why you shouldn't do it because they've made 18 products by the time it's launched. It's not an ideal market. They watch that crap like a hawk. I mean, I think when because it was called a Make One Cup was the product we had, and I think by the time the video aired and the patent was done, you couldn't sell that. There were so many better products, it was shocking. So,
yep,
it definitely became a bit of a problem with that stuff. But I'm glad to hear that we actually like there's an actual success story out there. I've been sending out ads constantly trying to get people. I want people with debt
yep,
because they have a very, very good story about a struggle.
yep,
And to my opinion, everybody has a story. There is not one person who doesn't have a story that should be shared. It's just when you have so many that are struggles, it makes it depressing. So makes it just a little depressing. But that's sort of the point is with a victory story like yours, they can learn that sometimes you just have to you just push through it. You have to push through, and it's every startup. I mean, this isn't the first thing I've done, and it's definitely the one that's taking up the most time right now. But it's not going to be easy. It never will be. You just have to find the best way to manage it and go through your time. And I mean, this, like I said, this is a startup. We're gonna hopefully get this thing to take off, but I don't expect it for a while. I think this is gonna be a slow growth, and I think with the channel that I'm trying to build, the audience is gonna have to kind of creep in, and the more people that have issues and want to know more information about what's going on, the more I'll build. But in the meantime, just trying to share the information so people can learn.
Definitely.
You
Well,
know,
and I think that you have a great, a great video presence and stuff. Like I was telling somebody else, they were, I think it was on Reddit as well. They were asking for reviews on their YouTube video, and I was like, "You look like this is, you've had like 5 million views on this video." So even just the thumbnail of you just being right here, it's like I could picture you having 1 million views, and or if it's a podcast, and I don't know anything about podcasts and whether it's views or however they
oh, this will
equate.
go on YouTube as well. That's why I do the camera stuff is because the main focus for this was YouTube, but because there are already unaccountable stuff out there, I registered this as an unaccountable pod, POD. And, it is a podcast. It's a one-on-one conversation and just hear people's stories. But at the end of the day, for, uh, licensing for I guess not even licensing, just for clarity, it had to be registered as a podcast for it to work. Um but yeah, I mean, I mean, I gotta ask you something because you're an entrepreneur. So, as far as starting this off, did you ever take out any debt? Did you do anything at all that kind of felt really risky, aside from the time that you spent doing it? Because that comes into it. What kind of risk did you take when you started this thing? Because it sounds like it took up a lot of time.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't have a debt story as far as like, because I know a lot of people they maybe took out 20 grand or something like this, like to get started. I tried to take out, loans or whatever, but I always would get denied. And so again, I was, maybe I don't know, however, 22 coming out of college, and so I had a shit credit score from a credit card that I had when I was 18, or, a $500 credit card. So I had a shit credit score. And then even as I was talking, I was, telling these banks like, well, hey, I'm building this utility patent. This is the, projected revenue. And they're like, dude, we can't give you a loan on projected revenue. So then I'm like, okay, well, what if I get investors? And they're like, well, we'd have to equate what they invested to give you the actual, the value of the
Yeah,
company. But then
it has to be valued by an investor for the bank to value it. Yeah,
like, even when I had the investors all documented, transfers to that bank. They're like, again, gave me the runaround. But anyways, it was a blessing because I didn't end up needing it. And God supplied it in other ways, resources to be able to keep pushing it down the path. But as far as the sacrifices and the low times, the first step would have been me telling my family that I was going to leave college early and not because really, I kid you not, it was probably 2 months before we were supposed to walk as seniors. And I was like, I'm just gonna finish online. And I actually finished for an associate. So I went to for a 4 year program to ride horses, to be a pro horse trainer, which really no one believed in the first place, anyways, because they're like, we didn't even know you could make money or have a real career in riding horses. And I'm like, you're like the top 20 in the world, you'll be a millionaire riding horses. So, but again, no one knows that. And so that was, already a hurdle going to college for that. But then of course I won nationals and they're like, okay, you must have something here. And so then when I'm like, I'm leaving early because I want to get this utility patent, everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with you? It was literally like pandemonium. It was crazy. So that was like the biggest risk, was deciding to do that. And then, of course, when I left, the first thing I did was actually work for the railroad. So I was down south. Well, actually, it was mobile. So they, we never flew anywhere, but we would just drive to all these different places around the country. And we would stay in hotels for, 3, 4 weeks at a time. And literally, like old school swinging spike maws, like literally old school building railroad track, like, but in
mhm.
down and everything from, from scratch. And so, the reason why I did that was because it was literally the highest paying job that I had access to. And I had a buddy that didn't even go to college. He was, we went to high school together and he was working there and he was like, dude, they're making like 26 an hour. And I'm like, whatever, bro. I was like, I don't care what it is. If I can make 26 an hour, I'll go down there and do it because I wanted to save money for, for the patent. And so I think altogether it was between 12,000 and 15,000, somewhere around there. And again, my parents weren't in a position at the time to be able to, help me with that. Well, they did help me. Let me not misconstrue that. They definitely helped. They put some funds in and things, but they definitely were like, we do not have $12,000 to just give you. And so I was like, okay. So I had this high paying job, and it was funny. I ended up meeting a older guy there, and he kind of put me under his wing, and he was like, "Yeah, you're making 26, but don't go get food at lunch because all the guys, we're making good money. They're going getting chicken wings and burgers and all this stuff, for lunch." And he's like, "Dude, get the little salmon packs or $1, get you a loaf of bread and some mayonnaise, and just grind it out." And so he was really one of the ones that, because if not for him and me being young, straight out of college, I would have been spending all the money like all the other guys. And so I was able to literally like live well below my means. And mind you, we're staying in hotels, so I didn't have, anywhere to live. And you know, I think the biggest thing sacrificing was things that I otherwise would have wanted to do. So even for example, like moving back home at a young age. You have all the young people, they're like, "Oh, I want to get this apartment," which of course I did, or people say I want to get a sports car, which at one point I did. My first car was like a convertible Mustang, 2019 Mustang or whatever, and I was paying like 600 a month, like killing myself to try to pay this stupid car note. And so, but definitely building a business, it was sacrificing the things that everyone else does. So it's like I can't go out with you guys to do whatever. I can't just have all these distractions or fun things to do. It's like I'm literally saving my money. I'm working as much as I can and trying to build this. So that was really a struggle for me because like first apartment, I don't think there was ever anything in the fridge. There was no furniture. There was no internet. Like I didn't even have enough money to pay for the apartment. And so it was just ridiculous. I had an air mattress. I didn't even have a real bed. You know what I mean? So it's like I definitely struggled in that sense as far as, if I wanted to spend more money or do other things that I wanted to do. I don't think I would be as, nearly as far as I am now. So like you said, everybody, even if, they have startup funds and everything like that. Cause again, I've met people who, have told me like, "Hey, we did a $100,000 month." And I'm like, "Okay, but you're still here sitting here talking to me. I don't get it." Like, aren't you, shouldn't you be off in like, Barbados or something like that? And so I met people who had a lot of startup funds and that didn't help them. Like they still had to struggle and, go through a time where they didn't get any wins and everything like that. So that would be my quote unquote debt story is, literally just having to struggle and focus on, what my end goal was.
I have a question real quick. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it echoing right now if you say something?
No, it's not.
Okay, try it again.
Te testing.
Okay, no echo?
No.
Perfect. All right. Sorry. So I switched the audio around. I guess I was using my computer audio this whole time. Um, but that's perfectly fine. No, okay. But you have a really good story, and I actually really enjoyed your story. It's just I have I gotta. So you said your parents helped you out, which make I mean, but obviously not the 12 grand. That's all up front. And it takes a while to build up money to start up stuff like that. Sorry, I kind of lost my head a little bit. But I was gonna say one of the things, like you mentioned, is they didn't have the 12 grand, and trying to change your path coming out of college is very different and very difficult, might I add. But I think not to get ethical about it, but I think one of the harder things to really do, quite frankly, is deciding when to move your path into a different direction. And
Yeah.
that takes a lot. It both mentally and physically, you have to figure out how you're going to decide what you're gonna do, and when you do decide, how far are you willing to go?
Right.
And that's a big part of it, in my opinion. I mean, I was raised with the philosophy that whenever we were kids, we were not told to go to college. It wasn't that we were told to not go to college for any specific reason, but quite frankly, a lot of it was just there's a lot of people that we know that succeeded better than others,
Right.
without ever having to go to college. Some of them never even graduated high school. It's not about what your education says; it's about what you can do.
Yep.
Education helps,
Yeah.
but if you have something that you're willing to commit to, and it's a good idea, and it's supported, and you have a supportful family, and from what I've experienced with most people, a supportful spouse is really helpful. Because most of the people I know that are wealthy, they did not make it because of just them. They made it because they had somebody helping them, and a lot of times it was their wives.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and you have to have support to keep you pushing forward. And
Abs-
I think that's something that a lot of people, quite frankly, should take away from this conversation. If anything, is if you're gonna make that decision, make sure you're gonna commit all the way, and you have someone there that's gonna support you.
Absolutely. And agree because I'm not married yet. I hope to be, in the near future. But to that point, I definitely could, and I felt like as a young man, I felt like it was on my shoulders. Trying to be the first millionaire in my family and things like that. And I almost, it's just like how society, bleeds these things into these, people's brains. Like you have to do it on your own and all these things. And so, like you said, to your point, you have to have a team that is willing to help. And so, even me calling places, me and my dad were just talking about this earlier. It's almost like ageism. If they hear a young guy call them, and I'm talking all these numbers and stuff, they're like, "This is just some young kid that probably pulled out an AI thing or whatever." But when they have a 50-year-old call and say, "Hey, we're trying to set up a business meeting," there's a completely different perspective that you'll get in a response. And so, but again, I had to be consistent to such a high level that my parents were like, okay, we actually see where you're going with this. This makes sense. And let's try to get behind you with this. And so, like I said, the times that I had to move back and live at home with them. And, there were things like I had a dog and I'm like, had to go to North Carolina at one point. Was riding horses and they're like, we'll take care of the dog or whatever. So it's just like, you definitely have to have a support system in some way, shape, or form. Like maybe they're not you know, inputting directly into your business as far as like things that you could be doing. But if they're just helping you in your life, like people that actually, have your best interest at heart and, actually believe that you're a talented individual, those are and even from an emotional standpoint, since again, I'm 28 now, the only person besides my older sister, and she's very successful. She's at Yale University in Connecticut as an orthopedic resident. So she's going for orthopedic surgery. She went to Ohio State and everything. So she's been very successful. And she was one of the examples of someone I saw as a kid maintain what they said they were going to do. And so that was a big inspiration. But besides her, the only person that has ever stuck with me is one of my friends that I had since the second grade. And so that guy, even like I think we went golfing last week. And so it's like I can at least call him and, vent and say whatever. Like as soon as we finish this, I'm going to be like, dude, I had this, dope podcast. This guy called. It was like super cool. And, it was my first interview kind of thing. And so, like, even someone that you can just talk to about, your entrepreneurial process is extremely vital because it can get depressive. It can get it can look really ugly if you just try to put all that weight on your shoulders. And I agree with you. Like, if you're not in a space to where you're willing to sacrifice a lot, and then also to where at least you have people who believe in you, around you, it's like that's a tough road to go down, but if you have those things in place, it definitely does lighten the load. So
Um, I do agree that a good support system is kind of where it's at. I mean, in all honesty, I think people thrive better in group. And that's the way I see it. But no, you have had a crazy adventure with your entrepreneurship, and I'm actually really excited. I do want to know. I won't put it in there if you don't want me to, but I do want to know what is the product because I might buy it.
It's a horse toy, so I can send you the link to the video. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's not technically public, the commercial of it,
Mhm.
but sending it to you as a non-horse person, you know,
Okay.
you would like go post it in a horse group somewhere. But I do have a suggestion. If you anything, I started a course. I don't know if you're familiar with School,
Okay.
SKOOL. Are you familiar?
SKOL. No.
Okay, it's basically, I think if you've heard of Kajabi, or it's like, the different subscription based communities.
Mhm.
Um, Literally just created a community called the DealDen, and
Okay.
so really focused on people with ideas, or specific skill sets, or again, like things that you're doing, building podcasts and communities and groups. You can go there and actually get things done. So
Okay. Yeah.
engineer or an attorney, or like I said, just a person off the street, and you're like, I don't even have an LLC. I'm wondering how to do that. I divulge all my information and the attorneys that I've used, and the patent attorneys that I've used, and everything like that. And then also allow people to self promote, because I think that was a big, it's, I won't say it's a barrier, because I'm finding ways to organically move around it. And of course, like if you just even AI, you ask like how to grow communities, they say start off by giving a lot of free organic value to
Mhm.
people. So that's why, again, even us having this conversation, I'm like, I don't care, whatever, if it's trial and error, that's fine, because I've already set my mind to, although I know that my value is really high, and I understand that, I could sit in rooms with, multimillionaires and give just as good as suggestions that they could come up with. I'm not there yet as far
Mhm.
as proven, tried and true. No one knows who I am. No one knows my face. And so that's why I'm, very transparent. And, and of course, my LLC is just doing God's work. So a lot of the things that I do, I'll just tell people like, I don't need you to pay me, or whatever, whatever that you can afford, or whatever you feel is fair, that's fine for me, because, I'm really in it for, a lot bigger picture than just like microtransactions. And so, but yes, to get to the previous point, that is a group that I just started, and it's only $4 a month. So I
Nice.
tried reasonable, because again, I went through times as a startup entrepreneur where I couldn't even afford $4 a month. Like to this day, I don't have Netflix. I don't have any of those things that cost like any monthly
I don't
subscription.
have them either, so you're all good, man. No kidding. I mean, well, for one, there ain't nothing good on Netflix anyways. Netflix is they've made some interesting shows, and they'll have every now and then they'll have one that's really, really good, but they're not worth the money. I mean, they up it like every 5 months, it feels like. So, and I feel bad for whoever's Netflix I'm using. Uh but it's not mine. And I will say, I wouldn't use it without the permission. Let me just start off with that. But if they ever asked to split it, I would. But I would also probably just leave the Netflix account and just move on. Because to me, it's insane that the subscriptions on that stuff. I mean, I think the only one that I saw that was probably good may have been Paramount.
Okay,
I think they're really high dollar, and they have The Office, which is something I like. But
that's the show of all time.
yeah. And yeah, I would say no, they have all the better shows. But I hate the subscription part where everything's scattered across multiple things.
Yeah.
And I for the most part, honestly, it doesn't always seem like it's worth buying. I was gonna actually say this based on your ageist remark earlier. Is it not weird how it's kind of switched around a little bit? Like it used to be ageist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be where it was older people and they're pushing out older people. I still think they are, but they're pushing out older people because they're higher value. They cost too much to work. So you push them out and then they're forced to retire. And then you can
Yeah.
get somebody younger, cheaper, and you can train them to do what you need them to do, more like an assistant, but they won't be able to do the full capabilities of what the older guy did.
Right.
Right. And I mean, that cycle makes sense,
Yep.
but it also sucks because sometimes some people just aren't ready to retire. I know most of my family, they don't retire. They just they just keep working. It's crazy. I think my dad retired about a year ago. Um, but he gets tired of the politics. With some of his jobs, they're political. He's a teacher, but there's always politics involved, and that's truth be told, that is a whole nother ordeal I could vent about for hours on how the education system just does not appreciate teachers to a degree.
Yeah.
And I can see some reason why, and I can also see some reasons why they really should probably try a lot harder to help them out
Correct.
and become a success like you have. But I was
Thank
going
you.
to ask, so as far as growing up, because you mentioned the 12 grand didn't come from your parents. How was money growing up? Was it talked about? Did you ever go into, I mean, I don't believe you mentioned any debt. You saved up the money, which is a smart thing to do. But how was money when you were growing up? How was that like?
So when I was young, and this is so funny, I was literally the first person in my family at 9 to have business cards and flyers. So my first technical business was a dog walking business. And so again, even at then, I had my mom supporting me to where I was like, "Can we go to Kinko's so that I can make these flyers?" And she's like, "Flyers for what?" And I'm like, I made these flyers on, they used to have the little the clip guy, the little paperclip guy, and he'd talk to you on the desktop, the big desktop. So I made,
Very old, actually. I think about it a little bit. It's like I haven't seen that crap in forever.
so that's literally where I started. Like I said, with business cards and flyers, and we would go. Literally, it's like I had some people that were across the other side of the city, and they would go on vacation for like 3 weeks. Never met me. They would meet me and my mom. They would leave their key in their mailbox, and we would go and let their dogs out and walk them, 2, 3 times a day and stuff like that. So that was really where I started to be able to influence my parents to start their own businesses because my dad is a therapist, or he used to be. Now he owns a business that is in the mental health space. But even when I was young, I'm like, you have all these clients, you work at the hospital, and you see all these people every day. I'm like, why don't you hire other therapists that are like fresh out of college, and then they can work in your office, and then you could just be at home. And so he used to say like, that does not, it doesn't make sense. That's not like realistic. Business is more complicated. But anyways, I was able to like help influence from a young age. And then I think when I was probably 13 or 14, they opened up their own business, and it was a transportation company. And so they were doing like medical transportation, to appointments. They would take kids to school, different things like that. And they ran it for, I want to say, maybe like 8 or 9 years. And then like Uber came out. That's when Uber and Lyft and all that. And then so they tried to like hurry up and sell the company. And I think they literally just like broke even, because we had like 15 passenger vans and stuff like that. And so it was a lot of overhead because that was their first business. So they, had a lot of stumbling blocks as far as taking out loans and, things like that. And so I won't say that was a failed business because I think it set them up for what they're doing now, which is in the mental health space. So they basically provide resources for they'll like from homeless people all the way to my dad was just telling me yesterday he went to like a correctional facility, and some kid's grandma was like, I want to get him out of jail or whatever. So my dad's like, okay, well, if we talk to the facility and we can get him released, he has to go into one of our halfway houses. He has to get treatment, things of that nature. And so he was able to use his background and just wanting to help people and give people therapy, which he's really good at, to actually build a business. And so he partnered with another family member, and now they're like actually making enough money to where it's like, okay, this is a legit business. Like they're getting government contracts and things like that, to where it's like they're actually making money. So growing up, it was never like that. Like I wasn't one of the kids who was like, can I get an Xbox for Christmas? Like, and they're like, yeah, because they're like, how much is that? $400? Like, probably not. You know what I mean? So a lot of this stuff, I definitely they motivated me. Like, hey, if you want a pair of Jordans, because all the kids go crazy over Nikes and Jordans and all this stuff. I don't even think. Actually, no, I have had one pair of Jordans as an adult, but I bought my first pair of Jordans. So my mom's like, I'm not spending $200 on a pair of tennis shoes. So that's kind of how money was for me growing up. It definitely, like, we never had any lights off or anything like that. I live in a nice house, but we definitely they were definitely not throwing around money, or like had it just free to use. And then like I said, when they started their transportation company, it was more like they thought they were going to make a lot of money because I think they signed a few contracts with some hospitals to transport doctors, and like it was just a lot of unknowns, them it being their first time around. And so um it would be situations like, oh, this doctor took 2 weeks off and that wasn't planned. And so then the company's like, well, no, we're not going to pay. I mean, he's not getting transported. And so it was like they kind of lost a lot. And like I said, I think they like literally broke even after like 9 years, and maybe they got out at a deficit. But so that's kind of how money was up until I think this is year two for the company that they've started now. And so like now it seems like our family has finally reached, and I mean my immediate family has reached like financial freedom to where, say for example, if my car broke today, they could be like, okay, we've got 20,000 cash that we can go get you another car. But like growing up, it was never like that. They're like, you got to get a job. So what I would assume the somewhat normal kind of path is as far as that. Like what do they call it? What's the word? Middle class? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
That
kind of
would be me as well. Yeah.
middle class family. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. But well, that's pretty much all I have today. To be honest with you, that's all I got about questions. I would say I've very much enjoyed your story.
I
um,
talking to you too as well.
Yeah, it's been a good day, and I'm glad to have met you. This seems like a pretty good conversation. I will say I am considering in the future bringing the same guest on just to have conversations about anything. So if you're open to it, I'll happily shoot you a message and say, hey, I think you'd be perfect for this. If you want to come back on, feel free. This is an open podcast, quite frankly, for anybody that wants to come on, and I encourage anybody that has a story financially, whether it be good or bad, just to come on and have a good time. And that's pretty much why I'm here. So,
That's dope.
but again, man, I want to say thank you very much for coming on. You have been a wonderful guest, and I hope that I can have you back on again.
Absolutely. Let me know when you get it edited, and send it over and I'll post it up. And like I said, I'm all about sharing, what you've got going on too. I think this is great, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Unaccountable. If you like the content and you want to see more, be sure to hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel. See y'all around.